Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, I am continuing my D&D BCMI, I always say BECMI, Master Rules set. So this is set 4 of the box sets that came out in the early to mid 1980s, and I had purchased these just in their, just the books. I I did get the first one in the box set, and they were starting to run up in price, to the point that I was like, I'm really more concerned with just having the books themselves, and so I went that route, and I probably saved myself probably around $60 overall by doing it that way, which $60 means I could buy probably 2 other books along the way, so it kind of worked out in my favor. Plus, I just like having the physical copies, and then even if I do rely on PDFs, having the physical copies on my shelf, I at least feel that I actually have them. It's real. It's a real part of my collection. So what I'm going to do is instead of flipping through the pages here, I'm going to go to a PDF and show you kind of my first look and then what's new. One thing I will point out though is that when I first opened up the Master DM's book, I found this in here. I got really, really, fearful that, oh my gosh, did this person actually cut something out of the booklet? And there's a description here. So it says J5, a storeroom. So the person must have cut this out of a module, and then just stuck it in here for whatever reason. So I was kind of relieved that they didn't actually cut it out of the book itself. So the books are in decent condition, with just a little bit of cover wear on them and clean on the inside. But anyway, let's jump right to the PDF. So here we have the PDF, and I'm going to scroll through, and here is the preface by Frank Metzner, or Mentzer. I have to pronounce names better myself. And this is going to take characters from level 25 plus, I believe, up to 36. And so this is really the last of the playable characters levels. And what I'll do is I'll show you what it means by that. So levels 15 to 25 was the companion. And then finally the ultimate level of glory goes from 26. All right, so 26 to 36. So that is this here. So even in the introduction here, they're not mentioning the immortal set because that's a different game from this. So if you do have the first 4 sets of the BCM, you don't necessarily need the I, although like I said, it's nice to have. It goes right into character classes and just extending the levels of the character classes. So you start going all the way up to, those upper levels. And one thing I wanted to point out is that they talk about, so there's new armor. So there is the full suits of armor now. So that's head to toe covering. And then the advantages of it is that it alone starts at AC 0. Remember, this is descending armor class. With the shield, it's a -1. And that's just the straight up, non-magical, armor suit. It's fairly heavy, and it does reduce your speed, to wear this. But but it does give you much greater protection than regular suits of armor. Some talk about weapon mastery here, training times and costs for weapon mastery. But that was, of course, introduced earlier on in the series as well. What this talks about, and perhaps it's in the next book because I focused on it, very quickly. So your siege equipment. So this is primarily player information. Goes through fortification. You're playing at the upper end of society in the gaming world, in whatever setting you happen to be playing on. And so mass combat and owning castles or strongholds and having to deal with sieges and such all become part of the mix here. So here's the Master DM's book, The Known World. So this is the inside and back cover. Anti-magic effects. So that's the first thing that popped out to me, is magic can sometimes be weakened or altered so that it is canceled or functions only partially. The phenomena is called anti-magic. Anti-magic is stated as a percentage chance that magic will not work within a given area. The first encounter with anti-magic for most PCs occurs when they confront the beholder whose central eye projects an anti-magic ray. The ray's AM value is 100%. Magic will not work within the ray. Some very rare creatures, notably immortals, possess partial or total anti-magic. The other times that you run into where your magic doesn't work as normal or at all is extraplanar travel. So, on some planes, certain magics do not work. Some planes, they might work, but to either a limited ability or with erratic consequences that are kind of unpredictable consequences. So if you do create a character at this level specifically, so there are some new rules about creating high-level characters, and basically just generally tips. So you don't have to start off a character at level 1 and then progress them all the way up. You could jump right to this level of play as well. And they talk about that here. And they go into magic item price ranges, so what they could potentially be. And obviously, if you're creating a character at level 26, that character is going to have vast wealth and probably a good deal of magic items, to be given to them at the very start. So here is the first passage that actually talks about retiring characters. Excuse me. So, for a variety of reasons, a player or the DM may decide that a character should be retired. A player may lose interest in a character. The DM might then make the character an NPC and have him reappear during later adventures. The character might still rise in level, but at a lesser rate of progress. Discarded characters who will fully develop in the past are ideal for new players who want to play established characters. The DM may decide that a character is no longer suitable for a particular campaign due to an excess of money, items, or power, very poor play, or some other reason. Before retiring a character, the DM should discuss the problem with the player and try to find alternatives. Remember that a poorly played but too powerful character may be suitable for another DM's campaign. Whenever any character is retired from play, provide the other characters with logical reasons for the disappearance. An adventurer might move away to another continent or region, die of natural causes or old age, or mysteriously disappears. Dominion income and XP. So this is when your character is dominant over a realm. All right. So, and how do they gain experience point as, like, let's say a king, and their wealth or their income and XP as a king. Go into these high level encounters, which become a much very different thing when you're when you're developing for a high level character group. Having things like wandering monsters and such becomes a whole different thing. It's not as simple as making it for lower level characters. So I don't think that you want to have a group of level 25 characters having to have an encounter with a handful of goblins, along a forested roadway. It's simply the outcome of that conflict is so easily known that that it's just a waste of time to actually run through it. So even random encounters, have to be balanced out with the party's group. And when you're just as a random encounter inserting a very powerful monster, it has to make sense. It can't just be, all right, well, I'm going to have them randomly encounter an ancient red dragon. That just doesn't come that way. An ancient red dragon is going to be something, an adversary that is a known creature in that region. There'll have to be a story built around that. And then finally, I'm just waiting for it. Here we go. Finally, as the characters approach the ultimate 36th level, they become aware of powers even mightier than they. All right, powers beyond the mortal ken. And the influence of these powers deeply interwoven with the fabric of the campaign events, and it becomes clear that their superior beings manipulate the world. And so it's just the path to immortality. And so the spheres of power that these maximum level or very near maximum level characters can ultimately become immortals. So immortals in the game. Immortals provide challenge for master level characters. Their subtle manipulations give reason to the campaign events. And so here you have characters in this description starting to interact with, potentially immortals, possibly even combating immortals, to a certain extent, and just becoming part of their manipulations. Then as we go through some more, so immortal manipulations, powers of an immortal, and they go through the basic minimum powers of an immortal, and then PC immortality. Since all mortals were once mortal, the DM may permit characters to seek immortality by taking the winding journey into heroic legend. Immortality is not easily gained, and most setting out on the path never succeed. And there are prerequisites for becoming an immortal. There are modifiers, so immortal responses, petition responses. This is my first walking through it, so I haven't totally dug into this myself. But there are 4 paths to immortality. And I know I looked at this a little bit. So the first path is a dynast. This is the route to the sphere of time. This path favors the cleric class. Quest: the character must quest for an artifact that will allow him to travel through time. The character must travel ahead of time to 3 separate periods and help 3 different descendants to retain their kingdoms and perpetuate the dynasty. Testimony. The character must create a realm with a population of at least 50,000 people if a human, or 10,000 if a demi-human. He must design and build a great new capital for his land. And in the task, the character must found a dynasty. The dynasty must be ruled by the character and his or her descendants for at least 20 years of the character's life. At the end of this time, the character must have a living grandchild to inherit the dynasty. The grandchild must be adopted instead of a blood relative, or may be adopted, instead of a blood relative, but must be announced as the heir. During the 20 years, the character should face at least 4 major challenges to his rule of the land. So that's how you become a dynastic immortal. An epic hero. This is the route to the sphere of thought. This path favors the thief class. Quest. The epic hero must quest for a major artifact from the sphere of thought. Trial. The epic hero must track down and bring about the defeat of an artifact of the sphere of entropy. Testimony. The epic hero must find and train a successor. The successor must be the player character of a different player. In addition, an epic hero must create a new legendary weapon. The epic hero must live up to the heroic ideals of courage, steadfastness, and dedication. He must complete an epic quest to perform a nearly impossible task, such as driving all dragons from the land or building a castle in the sky. This quest should take about 5 years to complete. A paragon. This is the sphere of route to the sphere of energy. The path favors magic user classes. The paragon must quest for a lesser artifact of the sphere of energy. The paragon must create an entirely new magic item. The cost of the research to create such an item equals the XP of the character. So you're talking about millions in gold. The components to make the item should be extremely rare and difficult to find, including at least one impossible item. For example, the footfall of a cat or the roar of a lion. The player must be creative in devising the means to acquire this item. Testimony. The paragon must recruit at least 6 apprentices, and they must rise at least 12 levels while in his service. He must also transform the land for 100 miles around his home. This transformation must give the land a unique appearance and range of inhabitants. The task. A paragon must be acknowledged the superior of all other magic users within 1,000-mile radius. He must accomplish this through magical duels or by driving all other magic users out of his lands. The character should challenge at least 8 magic users of 25th level or greater. These magic users may team up against the paragon. The Polymath. This is the path to sphere of matter. This favors the fighter class. Quest and task. The Polymath must face the challenge to succeed in 3 additional lives as cleric, thief, and magic user. The Polymath, during each of his 3 lives as another character class, must quest for and gain the same artifact. He begins each new career at first level with no memories of the previous lives. The quests may not begin until the character reaches 5th level in each class. The first 2 times the artifact is gained, the immortal reappears to the character within 10 to 200 days to claim it. The immortal then reduces the character to first level and causes him to forget his past so that he may begin the next character class. The third time the artifact is gained, the character may retain it, and the immortal returns all past memories. Trial. After completing the final step of the quest, the character must adventure alone until he reaches level 12. He retains the abilities of all the character classes and advances in all classes equally. Testimony. The Polymath must be accompanied on his adventures by one member of each human character class. These comrades may not begin at a level higher than the character. If any of these characters are slain, the aspiring polymath must take steps to resurrect them, setting aside his quest if necessary. Once the quest is completed and before beginning the trial, the character must erect a monument at least 100 feet tall, the glory of his adventures. This monument must stand for at least 10 years. If a character reaches immortality, he must retire from play of the game. However, if the DM desires, the new immortal may use his abilities to become any form, to take on a mortal form to adventure with PCs. An immortal may become any class of character of the equivalent level as the rest of the adventure party. Thus, whatever class is needed to round out the adventures may be provided. In this form, an immortal gains 1 point of power for every 40,000 experience points gained. So, I will switch views. So, as you can see, that's the real what's new with the Master Rules set. Is it kind of lays out the long process of bringing your characters up to at least 26th level, but most likely nearer to the 36th level, and then entering the process of becoming an immortal. And that immortality is going to take a series of epic quests that may take upwards of 5 years. Now, that's either 5 years of game time, or 5 years of real time. I'm not sure, but, I will assume that it's 5 years of game time. But just quite a number of challenges that are put into place that the player and the GM are going to have to work that out with each other. And, at any step of the way, as you can see, the challenge could fail and they just don't become an immortal. So it's a really interesting way to cap off a very long career for one of the player characters in your group, or it might be your own character, and you approach your GM and say, I want to really try to do this, and that could be another way to go. It's much more complicated than becoming a quasi deity, as it was laid out in Dragon Magazine for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. So I will mention that this seems to be a much more detailed and a much more difficult path using the D&D basic sets. So once again, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments about it, please leave that in the comments section. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. I am going to most likely move away from doing these. I might not do the Immortal set, and I'm going to start doing some videos very similar to this kind of format for first edition AD&D, which I'm almost I'm like one book away from completing my set of the non-supplemental books for that. So I have all three monster manuals. I have the Player's Handbook, the DMG, and the like I said, the three monster manuals. I'm just waiting for Unearthed Arcana, which I have. So I'm just waiting on Monster Manual 2, actually, which should come within the next couple of days. So once I have them all in place, I will start that video series as well. So once again, thanks for joining. I hope you like this video. I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. I just yesterday started playing in a group for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. I'm playing a Magic user, so it's been a long time since I played that system, and it's been an even longer time since I played a Magic user. So I'm really excited about that, and so it's very timely that I'm going to start going through and doing videos on First Edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and I will probably focus a little bit on Magic users as I go through those books as well, just to keep it nice and fresh in my mind for when I play every Sunday. So that's really looking forward to those as well. So thanks for joining. Have a great rest of your afternoon. It's Monday now, so your week may have started. Remember to be safe and keep on gaming. Take care.